Hi everybody, my name is David Liu. Being here with me is Michael. Michael is young, very young, yet he's very mature. You know why? Because just like Charlie Kirk, he is a hardcore conservative. What's important is that on campus, amongst a young or younger generation, they call Gen Z, Generation Z, Gen Z. And being a conservative is almost like being a criminal, right? You cannot tell people about it. What's up with that? Michael, can you tell us?
Well, David, among the youth, it's highly stigmatized to be a conservative of any sort, and that's what made Charlie's messaging so wonderful, is that specifically he made it socially acceptable to be conservative. He went out onto a myriad of campuses and he gave students an alternative perspective. He spoke to students as to why conservative ideals should be considered rather than just the democratic left-wing ideals that are being forced down our students' throats on every single campus. And that's what made Charlie's voice so important, and his death seemingly even more impactful, because ever since Charlie unfortunately was shot, thousands of Turning Point locations have opened up across the country, and people are using Charlie's death as a battle cry and holding him up as a martyr to continue his legacy and continue the ideals that he has been spreading his entire life.
Okay. Michael, I know you went to UCLA. You just graduated from UCLA. UCLA actually is well known for being a very left, like a left-leaning school where a lot of students, or most of the students, are actually very prone to radical ideas, right? Sure. So can you just tell me how it was? Like how the situation was in UCLA, and especially as a conservative, like how did you feel by interacting with other students at UCLA?
Well, the political scene at UCLA is quite astonishing. Just not too long ago, we had the Palestinian encampment at UCLA, in which our campus was shut down and denigrated for several days, if not, I believe, for a week in its entirety, where the entire campus was vandalized and portions of it were shut down via encampments by radical left students. And obviously, the entire cultural stigma at UCLA was that if you didn't have these proper sets of ideals, such as believing trans women are women, or certain facts about Palestine, or a myriad of other things such as abortion, healthcare, whatever, you were shunned. You didn't feel comfortable sharing those ideals. It made it very difficult because people would look down on you, as well as professors. Professors would also look down on you. Charlie's voice actually made the sharing of these ideas so much more acceptable, especially when he did come to UCLA.
Okay, so let me ask this one question. Have you ever had any debate with anybody or with any girl at UCLA?
Any woman at UCLA?
Yeah, about abortion.
About abortion?
Yes.
About abortion specifically, I don't believe so. However, I know their arguments very well.
Yes. So was it a particular reason that you did not want to do that, or just such opportunity never presented itself?
Such opportunity never presented itself, mostly. I've heard all of the abortion arguments on campus. It mostly boils down to the fact that they don't consider a fetus as a form of life.
or they were just being very selfish because they choose their own convenience over a life.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you feel that actually that was what it boils down to?
That's definitely the underlying truth.
Yeah.
I feel that most people, most women justify their position on abortion because they want the convenience of being able to have cheap sex and then not face any consequence.
Well, yes. So if you don't want to have a baby, what you can do, first, don't have sex. Well, second, if you do want to have sex, have protected sex, correct? So a lot of times I think people in that situation, I feel that also, I mean, I'm not saying that guys are not responsible at all. I'm just saying that they are also responsible. But what happens is that as a woman, I think compared to a man, you should know more or know better about how to protect yourself. If you are having unprotected sex and it's foreseeable, a lot of times it's even likely, right? Especially you are like a, you know, on the period, right? So you may get pregnant and have a baby, right? Are you ready for a baby? If you're not ready, please do not have sex, or make sure use protection. Am I right? Absolutely. So you cannot just go on. You know what? Because I feel like it, because you know I'm just gonna have sex with a guy, or I don't even know, you know, his name, but you know I'll deal with it later. How can I deal with it later? Just basically if you have that kind of mentality, because you actually a very selfish person. You don't really care about another person's life, especially that fetus. You know, is going to be your child. It's going to be your son. It's going to be your daughter. So to be frank with you, I have trouble understanding that mentality. So here's God's honest truth. You know, so a lot of times people, you know, they were pregnant. You know, it was not planned, right? It doesn't matter. You know, how they, you know, got pregnant and if whether it was one night stand or they got drunk or they were raped. In a lot of times, I'm not talking about like a lot of situations where, you know, you was not protected sex. They were with a boyfriend, you know, just, you know, I guess that it just at the moment they just want to have sex. Yeah, they did have sex, so they got pregnant. It wasn't planned. So they were actually facing a very hard decision. Am I going to have the baby? Especially in a situation where the guy says, you know what, I do not want you to have the baby. Or you can have the baby, but I'm not going to take any responsibility for it. Or sometimes that even the guy said, you know what, have the baby, you know, let's get married, you know, or I would take care of the baby, right? Even the guy, even the man is ready to take care of the baby. The question becomes, are you ready? Right? So they have a hard decision to make. They may not even like the guy. They'll be like, they were just horny. They just want to have sex. They have sex, right? They don't want to marry the guy. But they have to make a decision. So there were only two decisions to make. First, you know what? That's my baby. I'm going to have the baby. I'll deal with it later. Second, it's too much for me. I cannot do this. I'm going to get an abortion. I don't want to get an abortion, but I don't want my life, in their words, to be ruined or affected by the baby, right? So say there are two girls, they were roommates. Both of them had unprotected sex, and they had, you know, they were also facing the same decision of whether or not they're going to have the baby. One decides to have the baby, the other one decides not to have a baby, right? 10 years later, the girl that decides to have the baby, she's going to be watching her son or daughter running around, right? Say, mommy, mommy, catch me, right? She's going to think back 10 years. I'm glad I made that decision. Now that's my kid.
There's
nothing
right? more beautiful than the human life.
Yes, right? And then the other girl, her friend or her roommate, is going to be looking at that baby. She's going to be like, why was I such a coward? I could have had a baby. I could have had a son. I could have had a daughter. Just like him. Just like my friend's son. Just like my friend's daughter. They could be friends. He or she could be playing with my friend's baby. Right? Especially in a situation where later, even they were ready for a baby, they want to have a baby, they can never have a baby. It does happen.
Absolutely.
Right? So they will never ever be able to have a baby. They can never be a parent.
Mm-hmm.
But the joy of being a parent is irreplaceable.
Undoubtedly so.
Right?
Undoubtedly.
So meaning that is very simple. It's always the person that did not choose to have the baby. Later, they will have regrets. I've never seen one person, they decided to have a baby 10 years later. You know what? What did I do? Why did I want to do that? You see what I'm saying? I've never seen that. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
It's such a tragedy, because most of these women down the line, they end up realizing that not only did they want to have the baby, but they realize that they killed an innocent human life, a defenseless innocent human life, in their own selfishness. And that's why there are so many rabid abortion activists that cannot stand to be questioned or to be spoken with, because implicitly they already understand that they murdered a child. However, they cannot admit it.
Yes.
You see?
Yes. The sheer fact that they get very irrational, they get very emotional over that issue, because deep down inside, they know they committed a murder. They killed somebody. And that person was their son, was their daughter. That was God's honest truth. The idea is very simple, just as Charlie says it. You're not ready for a baby. Do not have sex.
Absolutely.
Right? Seriously.
Absolutely.
So actually, although on the surface, they killed Charlie, but in reality, Charlie's death made Charlie's message amplified, right?
Absolutely.
So his message is louder than before, is grander than before. So ultimately, Charlie won.
Absolutely. And his family won, his movement won,
Yeah.
the ideas that he championed won.
Yeah.
The shot that the assassin took at Charlie ultimately backfired, because now the conservative base is going to be more strongly dedicated to their ideals than they ever have been, because they feel like they are under attack. And I'm so happy to see that the conservative base, instead of being despaired, actually took this as a point of energy to make sure that Charlie's death won't be for nothing. It won't be meaningless. That we will carry on Charlie's message.
Precisely. Ultimately, humanity won.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.